Nisa Bulavinaka all. And thank you for the opportunity for PICAN to be part of this panel. We really appreciate it. So I am a fourth generation Fijian. I'm an islander, and I wanted to give you the perspective of a Pacific Islander from the global south at this Bonn Intersessional. I'm so proud of our Pacific and SIDS negotiators. Across the rooms in these past 2 weeks, they protected small island developing states, or SIDS, and least developed countries, or LDCs. These are the acronyms I'll use. They have come with solutions and expressed the lived experience of our impacts at home. But it's confusing, so because people don't seem to be listening. One of our elders and former Prime Minister of Kiribati, Anote Tong, recently said to me, one of the greatest moral wrongs is when you know you are doing something harmful and you keep doing it. This is what we see, and this is what I'm seeing in these rooms. At Bonn this year, it's somehow come to a stage where we have to defend our status as developing countries. We are developing countries. It's so strange that this needs to be actually repeated on the floor. We are particularly vulnerable along with LDCs. Due to our size and economies, we cannot absorb the full amount of climate finance, nor can we thrive with the burden of climate impacts. Through the specific mandate that was given to the NCQG, these negotiations are our only opportunity to secure SIDS funding for adaptation and loss and damage, and to ensure robust funding to keep the 1.5 target alive. To achieve this, trillions are needed for provision and mobilization for all developing countries, and AOSIS has articulated what this means. AOSIS is the Alliance of Small Island States. That is our negotiating bloc. This means, so they've articulated this in their comprehensive submission, whilst the SIDS and LDCs, a joint statement on the floor that we heard yesterday afternoon, clearly laid out the needs and protections necessary for the most vulnerable amongst us. I can give you an example of what I mean. And firstly, unless you have lived through a cyclone and hurricane, you may not understand what we mean by impact and vulnerability, and what that means when you experience that power of nature. When Cyclone Yasa and Ana swept through Fiji in the midst of the pandemic, in the midst of COVID-19, 1 year after another cyclone, Cyclone Harold, do you think that that was a singular event, that it was complete after that? No, our economies were already in crisis from the shock of the pandemic and still recovering from Harold. And then one after each other. Still to this day, we're recovering. Still to this day, our children are recovering, and still to this day, our people and our ecosystems are recovering. It's tiring and exhausting to keep coming here. And as a percentage of the damages that were incurred through those two twin cyclones, the amount of international cooperation that was received was 12%. As an economist and a scientist, it's exhausting because I know in my mind the clock is ticking down, and each day is getting louder, because 1.5 means 70 to 90% of our reefs are going to be gone. And the North will tell us that they have a quantum, and the quantum is a minimum floor of 100 billion. Yesterday, the LDCs and SIDS presented an urgent plea for targeted and substantial financial support, emphasizing their unique vulnerabilities and minimal contributions to global emissions. They pointed out the inadequacy of the previous 100 billion per year goal, which failed to address their specific needs, and stressed the necessity of scaled up resources, efficient access, and prioritizing grants over loans. They demanded that the NCQG include loss and damage alongside mitigation, adaptation, and a call for systemic changes to ensure equity and access for the most vulnerable and also all developing countries. They even clarified the importance of a transparency system to prevent continued use of fossil fuel production. So we're really vulnerable, and our high debt and disproportionate impact of climate change underscores the critical need to access substantial climate finance. And the small island states have presented a solution forward, and that solution you can see in the AOSIS submission, which you can find on the UNFCCC platform, and I highly recommend that you all read it because it provides a structure of what a equitable NCQG could look like. Thank you.